You're wrong about Space Patrol Luluco. Or at least all the reviewers are. Because everywhere I look, anytime someone is opining on Space Patrol Luluco, I see the same thing. Luluco racks up points for the sheer enjoyment and laughs it gives off, even if there is literally nothing that keeps progressing as a storyline. Style over substance. Stupid, fun, and over the top. It has nothing in the way of deep symbolism or groundbreaking storytelling. Every single reviewer seems to have taken one look at the way the show is set up, as a quirky and fun comedy with a lively art style, and seen it as their cue to turn their brain off and stop thinking. Honestly, I find it ridiculous that so many people are willing to put their thoughts on a series out without even bothering to have thoughts about it beforehand. One would think that'd be a pretty obvious prerequisite, but apparently not, so I guess there's nothing for it but to dive in and explain Space Patrol Luluco. Look, I'm not entirely unsympathetic to all these reviewers. It's true that when Luluco starts off, it doesn't seem to be up to much. Some comedy, some quirks, some of that old trigger charm, the usual. Luluco is a cute girl who wants to be normal but lives in a weird town, hijinks ensue, yada yada. The early parts of the series do a great job inspiring a sense of complacency in the viewer, a sense of, okay, I get what's going on here. Trigger are going to do their wacky dance for me and I'll get to sit back and enjoy the fireworks. And for the first 75% or so of this show, that's true. Luluco is cute, the supporting cast is wacky and fun, the set pieces are imaginative, and there are copious amounts of Trigger fan service all over the place, a large chunk of the midsection even consisting of the cast visiting various planets based on previous Trigger works. Specifically, Kill La Kill, Little Witch Academia, and Sex and Violence with Mach Speed. So far, so good. It's all fun, lighthearted, the animation's fucking fantastic, a wacky time was had by all, and we go home satisfied. If this were the entire show, I wouldn't be here. The reviews would be basically on point. But those last 4 episodes are where this all falls apart. The last 4 episodes of this series are the animation equivalent of Hiroyuki Imaishi standing up on a table and screaming at the audience about his worldview. It's loud, it's bombastic, it's not remotely subtle, and somehow everyone seemed to miss it. The plot, previously focusing on the retrieval of the shoplifted city district of Ogikubo, takes a sudden and jarring shift with the reveal that the villain, a Black Holian, was actually after Luluco the entire time. Specifically, he wants the Afflutter Gem, a piece of imagery seen in the credits of every episode as a shining, gaudy, but actually completely flat piece of crystal in the shape of a heart. As he explains it, he's after the most worthless, pointless, disposable item in the universe, and it can only be generated by an emotion just as disposable and worthless. The first love of a flighty, immature middle school girl, a love based on shallow, surface-level characteristics. The object of this love is Luluco's partner on the force, recent transfer student Alpha Omega Nova. He's a shockingly gorgeous boy, all piercing gazes and wavy blonde locks, but it is revealed he is literally incapable of projecting a personality or feeling emotions. He is hollow, he is empty, he's a pretty box with nothing inside it. The Black Holian put this boy next to Luluco for the express purpose of fostering this immature, shallow love, so that it could produce the gem he so desires. And why does he want this gem? Purely for the purpose of shattering it. This is the point at which all these critics should have sat up and started paying attention. It is clear by this point that the series is building to some sort of statement if you're at all receptive to it, and had anyone bothered to actually pay attention, they might have walked away with a deeper understanding of this series, its creators, and possibly even themselves. Because after establishing all this, after spending an episode lambasting Luluco for her childish viewpoints and her shallow feelings, looking down on her for daring to have felt something for someone so undeserving of her adoration, the show spends another entire episode centering on Luluco conversing with another character in Hell, building up to an important realization. Nova wasn't who she thought he was, and she was naive to assume that he would fit her image. But that doesn't mean none of it had any value. This is a turning point for the character. She literally escapes from Hell, figuratively breaking out of her own defeated, conformist, self-ashamed worldview, and takes control of her own life and how she presents her emotions. She busts herself and her friends out of the cell they were imprisoned in and announces her intention to find and confess her feelings to Nova, earning the respect of her previously estranged, free-spirited space pirate mother, Luluco, who lends Luluco her ship for the purposes of reaching Nova. It's at this point that Luluco comes into her own as a character, no longer content to blindly accept whatever she is told is correct, no longer focused on being seen as normal. And when she reaches Nova and talks to him, her sincerity and genuine love for him awaken emotions he never previously had. Their shallow, immature loves combine into something beautiful, and they stand and fight their adversary, rejecting his smug dismissal of their feelings. Luluco's sincerity and enthusiasm were able to reach Nova, even though he felt nothing previously. Some other stuff happens that I won't go into too much detail on, and Luluco finds herself alone, Nova torn away from her, forced to face the Black Holian on her own, and it's at this point that she's forced to complete her arc. by weaponizing her own feelings without an object of affection to project onto beside her. She undergoes a magical girl-esque transformation and destroys her foe, Nova making one more final appearance to reassure her that they'll see each other again in another world. The thesis statement of Luluco is deceptively simple, but it's also a surprisingly uncommon sentiment, particularly in the modern criticism landscape. The point of the show is that any joy and love you feel is worthwhile. The villain of this series is a snide, judgmental asshole who's too quick to dismiss other people's thoughts and feelings as shallow, worthless, ordinary. And in a way, he's right, but not in the way he thinks. It's true that a person's emotions aren't inherently valuable in any tangible way, in any way that means anything to anyone but that person. But that doesn't mean they're utterly worthless, and the idea that some feelings are more disposable and pointless than others is entirely wrong-headed. This show stands completely against the depressingly common idea that certain approaches to making an emotional connection, both in the real world and in the field of art, are inherently more valuable because they're deeper, or more mature, or less lowbrow. An idea that Trigger in general, and more specifically Hiroyuki Imaishi, have spoken out against to greater or lesser degrees in most of their shows. Imaishi has a fascination, almost an obsession, with blurring the line between art and product, a line which I would argue is entirely arbitrary and mostly drawn by people looking to privilege their own preferences above other people's. Space Patrol Luluco says that this sort of distinction between valid and invalid enjoyment or love or any other sort of feeling is not only incorrect, it's harmful and cowardly. If you watch a show and you feel something, even if only for a moment, even if for a simplistic reason, you have felt it. People can argue all they want about how worthless and shallow the thing you love is, but at the end of the day, it still made you feel that emotion, and that experience is valuable in itself, even if it was something simple like a goofy 8-minute comedy fanservice show. Luluco's arc is all about coming to terms with her feelings, accepting and valuing them as worthwhile parts of her life, and discovering that a pure, sincere love is infectious and can easily shatter a cynical or derisive facade. She has to realize the value in her feelings for Nova, and then further take ownership of her emotions in his absence. It's only after she's done this that she's able to achieve her ultimate form and defeat the villain who acts as an avatar of gatekeeping and judgment. And when the smoke is cleared and she's standing tall as her true self, proud and unashamed, Studio Trigger put the least subtle cherry they can muster on top of this message. They name her after themselves. Again, it is astonishing that so many people manage to miss this. Space Patrol Luluco is the story of Studio Trigger's outlook, and it's probably also the story of Hiroyuki Imaishi's emotional development, all told through one simple idea: that a middle school girl's shallow love for a cute boy is still a valid experience. And by making this statement, the show justifies its own existence as a goofy, over-the-top, stylistically gorgeous fanservice show, an existence which doesn't really need to be justified, but which many critics will demand justification for anyway. And even after being given such justification, those same critics will ignore it, pretend that it never happened, and toss the show out, labeling it disposable. But not everyone did. The show reached some people at the very least. I was very touched by this show's message. It seriously affected both my perception of Studio Trigger and the way I look at and conceptualize art in general. The show changed my life. It left an impact on me. It provided me with a worthwhile and valuable experience. So you know what? I guess it's okay that a lot of people didn't get it. Because I still felt what I felt. It's valuable to me, and the fact that people will claim that I'm wrong to think so won't change my experience. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if they think it's shallow or stupid, because I still love Space Patrol Luluco.